Hey, so we've had a lot of great CIOs on stage the last couple of days. We've got one more person to share with you and have a great conversation. Somebody who's really led tremendous change within an industry that you wouldn't normally think is that progressive. So please give a warm welcome to the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Eversource Energy, Kountze.
Good morning, everyone. Thank
Welcome.
you, Lenny.
Have a seat. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Kathy has comprehensive responsibility for all of IT at Eversource, both internally and externally, as well as the security function as well. Mm-hmm. Do you mind sharing a little bit with the audience about Eversource and what they do?
Okay, so Eversource is the largest utility in New England. We provide gas, water, and electric services to about 4 million customers in the Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire states. Boston is obviously one of our big cities in that territory. And my role and my team's role, as Lenny indicated, is to provide the technology services both internally as well as to the assets out in the field for the company.
Great. So we're going to talk quite a bit about what you're doing today, but let's take the clock back a little bit and curious sort of how you got to where you are today. What was your path to Eversource?
Okay, so we're taking the clock back a lot. So my path was definitely not a straight career path. There were lots of curves and bends as I tried to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. My undergrad is in actuarial math and science. And when I got out of school, I quickly realized that wasn't something that I wanted to pursue for a living. So I quickly started to do, I think, what a lot of college grads do, trying to take different jobs, pay the bills, and dabbled in banking for a little while. But my first real introduction to computers came surprisingly when I took a customer service representative job for ADP, payroll company, I'm sure most folks are familiar with. And what they were doing at the time is they were just introducing their PC payroll product to the world, and they were starting a pilot program. And they asked me and 2 other coworkers if we would be the support group for it. Now, I had never worked with computers very extensively, but I wanted to get off the phone. So I can't say that I did this from a place of growing a career, more of running away from answering all the calls that came in about payroll. And that's really where I started to get my interest about in computers, in the computer industry, and quickly decided that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. I went back and got my master's in computer science. And at that point, because I knew I had lost a little time with my career, I started taking every and any type of technology job that I could take. I was, end user support. I was a one-person shop for all technology questions at a company. I did project management. I did some coding. I was doing anything I could do to start putting those bullet points on my resume to make me look like a true technologist. And what happened after doing that for about a year or so, I ended up getting a call from a friend who said that a utility company was getting a brand new CIO for the first time. It was a woman, and she was looking for someone who had a consultancy background. And at the time, I was working for a consultancy firm. And that was my first introductions to utilities. I came on board. She put me in charge of the application area of that group. And I quickly then saw that I wanted to be her. I had no idea what a CIO did or I had never even heard of the role. But watching her in action, and she was trying to really change how IT was supporting the company, I was very excited about the potential of maybe being her one day. So I quickly asked her, after getting the role, what do I need to do for you to recommend me to be your successor when you leave? She wasn't planning on staying very long. And I did everything she said. I worked my tail off for 5-6 years. And when she left, she recommended me, and that's what was my first CIO role.
Yeah.
And that was about 10 years ago.
Oh, congratulations. Of the jobs that you had previously, which ones were formative for you in terms of they were important in a stepping stone toward a CIO?
So, they were all interesting in their own realm, but I think the one I enjoyed the most was the project management. The other piece that I enjoy is the customer interaction, and that role allowed me to do more working with customers about what they were doing with their projects and more business discussions than the other roles. Yeah. So I enjoyed that.
Great. Tell us about working inside the energy business. What's different about that or special?
Well, I can speak for myself. I think it has different meaning for different people. For me, it's really understanding the importance of what we're doing. Just if you can even imagine not having electricity, water, gas to heat your home, and things that we take for granted, and recognizing that we provide those services that really can have an impact on public health and safety. So for me, that resonates, and that really comes through when we have large storm events. I start to recognize just how important it is what we do. We can have hundreds of thousands of people out of power, and if you've ever been to the Northeast in the winter, there are folks sitting in the dark in sub-freezing temperatures. And these aren't just strangers. These are our families. We all live in these areas. So these are friends, family. So it really is personal. When that happens, it's all hands on deck. All 8,000 employees at Eversource are all in storm mode. And from an IT perspective, because we have to maintain all the systems that support the restoration effort. On a day like today, they're important, but on a day when you have 100,000 customers plus without power and without heat, those systems have to hum. They take on all new meaning. The systems that actually manage the grid are under our ownership. We have to maintain and keep them operating. The outage management system, which all utilities have, key to identifying where outages are, how impactful they are, assigning crews to work comes out of that, and everything from there also feeds into our customer touch points. And as you can imagine, if you've ever been in an outage, our customer experience also needs to be extremely well and solid. They're hitting our outage maps at record numbers. They're on our web getting information. They're flooding our call centers, flooding our IVR. Our app is inundated. So you can imagine what an IT organization is doing when we go from 0 to 100 within a matter of hours during a storm.
Yeah, thanks. The customer focus is something that sort of takes us to some of your key technology initiatives, especially around cloud.
Right.
But what are the top things that you're working on today?
So I think we're working on a typical utility industry, that similar industries like manufacturing, government, transportation. We are focused on a little bit behind what the retail and software and finance industries have worked on for years, but we're focused right now heavily on an enterprise data analytic platform to get more insights about customers and also what's happening with our grid. We are doing a lot around automation. We have rolled out a significant amount of mobile devices to our field force, which doesn't sound like a big deal, except when you think of folks who have been doing things manually and now giving them a piece of technology that they must use to do their job. It's been quite the effort around change management. And we have been able to leverage our cloud strategy, which we put in place several years ago, to enable all those things to take place and move forward.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more deeply about the cloud decision? Was that a hard one? Was it one that was waiting to be made?
Yeah.
And then how did you make a choice once you started down that path?
Sure. So as a CIO, it wasn't hard for me. It was very difficult for from a cultural change at a utility. But when we went through the merger, we went through a significant merger about 7 years ago. it was an opportunity to kind of go greenfield with some new solutions. And because we wanted to move quickly, we had 2 and 3 of everything, and we wanted to quickly get to one organization centralized. We were about 6 different operating companies. We were coming to one. Choosing SaaS solutions at that point helped us to move fairly quickly, and it also helped us with kind of the challenge of you have 2 of everything and everyone had their favorite. And we were able to leverage a lot of SaaS solutions because of that, the merger imperative. The second piece of our strategy then moved us to a platform as a service model. We have our whole Eversource.com environment sitting out on the Microsoft Azure platform. And just recently we have moved to infrastructure as a service, and we've taken on what I call our dormant environments, which are test, train, dev environments, and we've moved those out to the cloud as well.
Yeah. And what does that mean for staffing? How has that changed the mix?
Well, it's, we're challenged like everyone to find good quality IT staffing. I was just reading something this morning which wasn't very encouraging, where it said that IT opportunities were going to increase 22%, and that there is going to absolutely be a shortage of qualified people to fill those roles. Utilities are not considered the sexy thing, when you have IT professionals and they're looking for their next job, and you have the Googles and the Amazons, especially in the Boston area. It's hard to compete, but we have been able to attract, I think, fairly good talent. We've been partnering heavily with HR to try to get more strategic and creative on how we attract, retain IT resources. We've been, I think in today's age, and this goes right along with my other passion around STEM and diversity, we have been able to start partnering with third parties that focus on high school kids who are right out of school or in their gap year. And we've been looking at apprentice programs where you can bring young adults in who have a high school degree and come fill some of those roles, and we train up. We've been partnering with, doing a lot around internships, both with college kids who are graduating and the ones who are still in school. So we've been heavily focused on filling, going with the pipeline, recognizing that we need to have people at all levels coming into the organization. And the pipeline right now seems to be where we're getting most of the traction, and we're getting some pretty good talent there.
Any lessons learned that you can share with the audience about how to start those programs, or challenges along the way?
Yeah, I mean, it really was. I had to reach out to our HR organization and just talk about, we don't want to stay with the traditional mode of, you have an opening, you fill it, 4-year degree, X years of experience. I think that in today's age, unlike when I started in the IT world, there are so many opportunities in technology today that don't require a 4-year degree, that don't require certification. And we can hit a group, an underrepresented group, who has been under the misnomer for years that for me to be in IT, I have to go to college, I have to get a degree, I have to at least be certified. And there's plenty of opportunity for folks who don't have those credentials. The 2 main things that I like to look for in staff these days, because it's so critical for IT folks to understand the business components of a company and not just be technologists, is motivation and what they call that EQ, that emotional intelligence. If you have those 2 things and you can present yourself as being strong in those areas, I'm pretty confident that a person with those qualities is going to be easy to train in a lot of the technologies today.
So you're saying that sort of human skills, EQ skills, may actually be as important, if not more important than technology skills.
It depends on the role. So for someone, for our organization, they are, to me, more important because we, some of our more technical roles are outsourced. And I like to keep the team that actually is, Eversource badge folks, those customer-facing roles. I think that it's important for an IT organization to represent themselves as being more of a business organization than an IT organization. I like when my team can sit and talk about with our businesses, what they're trying to do, and then the conversations about technology come after that. When we can sit and talk to an HR organization of how they want to transform their department, or talk to our operations area about how they want to get more efficient in the field, and those conversations to me are more important than the technology pieces. I tell my peers all the time, I can find a technology in this day and age that can support you. Let's talk about what you want to do and what your business outcomes need to be. So I need folks in my department that can also have those conversations.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain training programs or other ways that you're sort of trying to step up some of the people in and around departments?
Well,
just more sort of learn by experience.
Well, it's both. I mean, when you bring a certain age group in, they tend to like to Google everything. So they like to they're self-taught. When we have traditionally done like classroom training and things like that, they don't like it. They'll come in for a few hours and then they want to go be self-taught. So we're looking at ways we can support that. We've been doing a lot more lunch and learns, a lot more training videos, partnering, especially with Microsoft, on how we can do more self-learning. But I also have in the organization, our business folks are also, utilities tend to have high tenure. So I think our average tenure right now is about 28 years.
Wow.
So I also have a very large demographic of employees who don't want to be taught that way and want to be in the traditional modes of learning, Office 365 or the iPad. So it's a balance. It's recognizing that an IT organization might want to learn a certain way, but we also have a broader audience of employees that all want to learn in a variety of different mediums.
Yeah. Hey, so with a big event in your life was the big merger that you went through. And that was 7 years ago, roughly. Is that right?
That was 7 years ago, April 12th.
Yeah.
Yes, 2012.
So describe what it looked like when you went into this.
So it was pretty scary. I don't know if anyone has been in a merger, but we were bringing two almost culturally very different organizations together. From an IT perspective, I went in when I was asked to stay on as a CIO. I was mistakenly thinking that the hardest part was going to be the technology roadmap we had to develop. We inherited 2 and 3 of every system. On one side, the systems were very customized, one-of-a-kind type systems built from the bottom up. On the other side of the house, they were old, legacy, 30, 40 years old in some cases. So I quickly said, well, this is going to be a technology nightmare, but that's okay. That's what we're here to do. And the biggest lesson learned when people asked me what I learned out of that merger was the people aspect was actually the hardest part. I'm a big change agent. When we're changing for the right reasons, I'm a big proponent, and I thought the new merged company, which is actually doing extremely well, was going to the new CEO, the direction he was sending it was just phenomenal, which is why I stayed on board. But I completely underestimated the fact that there's a lot of, human nature does not gravitate to change. And I often joke with folks about the fact that I honestly think that I have an honorary psychology degree at this point, because I've spent most of my time figuring out how to motivate my team, how to work with my peers, how to get everyone and anyone to talk about business process change and not technology. And it's tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. You've talked to me about partnership with other parts of the business. Is that an important aspect of getting through a change like that?
Oh, it's critical. And not even just in a merger from my perspective. I don't think in this day and age you can get anything done without working with your peers. And I don't just say that to say it. I honestly mean that we have done a tremendous amount of projects, large multi-year complex initiatives. And the only reason that we've been successful in the IT organization is because of the sponsorship and the support that I've gotten from my business peers on the other side. We have a very rigid approach on doing projects where we have project sponsorship from myself and whoever business is mostly impacted. So we're all making the decisions together, and we're sharing in the success and the failures together. So it's been, I've been pleasantly surprised at the amount of support that I've gotten from my peers, considering how much change I've been asking them to support, and especially like going to a cloud and doing more outsourcing. You can imagine the look that I got many meetings on, do you know what you're doing? So.
And were there lessons that you learned, or you could sort of tell yourself at the end that you wish you had known early on going into the process?
Yeah, I wish, just getting back to the people aspect, I wish I had known the amount of people touch points that needed to happen, and the consideration to the human side of something so dramatic. I would have worked, I think, a lot closer with probably HR. I would have done more touch points. I would have, I can be a bull when I'm driving to dates. I would have picked my head up a little bit more and maybe had more of the conversations about the why and what's in it for them than I probably did during the merger. So that's probably the next lesson learned. But my goal is to not go through another merger. So.
And does it slow down after the merger, or have things sped up because of competitive issues? What's sort of taken over in terms of the impetus, the energy?
So we, again, mistakenly thought that we'd be at the peak of our projects and integration initiatives. I think back in 2017 was my original roadmap. We went into this year with our largest portfolio of projects. We have about 85 projects that were targeted to work on and get done, or at least start up this year. Largest capital portfolio from a budget perspective. And I think what has driven that is not only just the merger and the fact that we're still integrating a lot of areas. We started with shared services. That's done. We moved to customer. Now we're doing our largest group, which is operations. So still a lot of 2 and 3 major systems over there that we're replatforming. But I think what also has driven this, Lenny, is all of the focus on customer experience, right? So when we went into the merger, we were very focused on integrating and becoming one company, and we lost a few years on the whole customer experience piece. So in the last 2 or 3 years, we've had to play a lot of catch up there, because everyone wants that Amazon-like experience, as we all know. And even as a utility, we have to give the similar experience to what they get when they deal with any other service providers. It's expected. They want to be able to get a lot of information online. They want to pull up an app to get information. They want to pay their bill, in whatever way they want to pay the bill. They want to have choices on how we communicate with them. So I think pile that on top of integrating, a fairly large organization, and yeah, it's been pretty busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other specific projects that you're looking forward to over the next couple of years?
I'm looking forward to them all ending, is what I'm looking forward to. I'm actually excited about the data analytics. I'm a little bit of a geek with data. Just, I think, coming out of the actuary world, I have a little bit of that still left in me, and I love looking at data and determining, looking at the trends to see what it means, and even more importantly, how we can change how we operate, both in IT and across the company, based on that data. So I think it's a game changer. I think it is for a lot of companies. I really think it is for us. I think the amount of information we'll get to inform us to get better at what we do, to inform us, maybe proactively of what's happening out on the grid before it actually happens. I'm looking. That's the fun stuff for me.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, you just have a few seconds to go. Anything else you want to share with the audience in terms of managing their careers and being successful? You're such a great example. What lessons did you can share with us?
Well, I think the biggest lesson for me, and again, this could be more of a personality thing, is you have to. I wish I had had a level of confidence earlier in my career as I do now. I realized somewhere in my career, and as I was growing and sitting in a lot of meetings with a lot of execs who were I'll keep nameless, that there's the person who's the most confident and the loudest in the room isn't always the smartest. And I think it's important as individuals are trying to figure out what they want to do to feel that certain level of confidence about their capabilities. Go with, I go with my gut a lot. It might be because of the experiences I've had, but I trust my instincts a lot. And I really think, I know that sounds kind of trite, but I think it's valid. The other thing I usually recommend to a lot of, especially young adults that I speak to who are trying to grow their career is, have short-term goals. When I was trying to grow my career, as I mentioned, I went to school and then I said my short-term goal is to make my resume look like a technology resume. Okay, check. It looks like a technology resume. Now I want to be this woman. What do I need to do to be this woman? So have those short-term goals and check the box on those. If you set too many long-term, it can get a little discouraging if you don't hit them quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Those great recommendations, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Please give a warm hand to Kathy.